Critical Role Recap Season 2, Episode 75. Last week, the Mighty Nein learned about a material called Ice Flex, which is mithril that has been breathed upon by a white dragon with its frost breath, and they also learned of a nearby white dragon that they could possibly use for making Ice Flex. So they gathered up some raw mithril, had it smelted down into a single piece, and then used teleportation to make their way back to Rosanna, and then asked Essek to teleport them to near this dragon. So this week's episode picks up immediately with them standing in the blizzard as Essek says, "Good luck, guys, I'm out of here," as they then face towards the cave that is nearby. Inside the cave, they find signs of yetis. There are some yeti tents scattered about inside one of the caverns in the cave. And as they make their way through into the cave, they come upon some yetis and get into combat. They end up fighting 4 yetis in total near the yeti camp. The fight goes very smoothly for them. After they kill the yetis, they search the area and see that there are some crude cave paintings that seem like they were done by the yetis that show yetis giving over some sort of sacrifices or gifts to a giant snake-like dragon thing. They come to the conclusion that the yetis are kind of worshipping this dragon in this cave and are bringing it goodies in exchange for protection, or at least the right to live near it in this cave, which gives them an idea for how they could possibly approach the dragon and get it to breathe its icy fire on their mithril thing by pretending themselves to be yetis and then putting out some sort of sacrifice that Rini can conjure up with her druid spells, and having the mithril nearby so that it gets hit by the breath as well, hopefully turns into Ice Flex so that they could then snatch it back up and be on their merry way. This plan takes numerous different forms, including cutting up some of the dead yetis and trying to stuff 3 of the Mighty Nein inside of a yeti corpse. They talk about using illusions as well. However, they end up with just having Rini summon up a spider queen, a frost queen spider, which they decide on that one because it has cold resistance, and they're not sure how many breath blasts it might take to turn the mithril into Ice Flex. It could require more than 1 blast. So they pick something that they think might be able to survive a single blast. They decide to go ahead and use Caleb's tiny hut to sleep inside of safely. This episode, Liam is not with us, but Marisha does an admirable job of doing Caleb's accent. Before they do go to sleep, Liam had sent a little list of things he wanted to do before going to sleep, one of which was identifying the objects that came out of that page in the book that they tore out of the library book in last week's episode. Last week, they had brought it to Essek. Essek simply cast Dispel on it, and the page immediately dumped out the contents of what was held inside of it magically. And inside, there was about 25 platinum, a snuff box, as well as a scroll case, which held 3 different scrolls. It held Greater Invisibility, Major Image, and Levitate. So Caleb now has access to these 3 scrolls, which if he wants to, he could inscribe them into his spellbook and learn them permanently, or he could use them as scrolls to immediately gain the benefits of said scrolls. Ford also went ahead and snatched up a plain sword that was laying around in the Yeti camp, so now he has access to just a basic functional sword so that he can get back into the thick of things. He has a conversation with Caduceus before they go to sleep, where he's continuing to ask for guidance, and Caduceus goes ahead and casts Commune with the Wild Mother and allows Ford to ask some questions through him. First, he asks why the Wild Mother decided to help him get out of the jam that he was in with Uk'otoa, and the answer to that was kind of unclear because the Wild Mother never speaks in direct language and kind of more sensations and ideas that she speaks to Caduceus. So the general idea was like, why not kind of thing. He asks if he were to change the way he lives currently, whether that could lead him towards gaining back some of these abilities or different abilities, which the response is yes. Ford then asks if she could do something or show him something to give him a more clear path, show him how he can go about achieving this change that he's looking for. And the answer is once again unclear, and then Caduceus kind of answers in his own way, saying, that it just kind of requires faith and wait, and the time will come. Like, you'll know it when you see it kind of thing. So then the party goes ahead and takes their long rest inside the safety of Liamon's tiny hut, and they wake up in the morning fully refreshed. They go deeper inside the cave, and they stumble upon a large shaft that goes straight up, and this seems to be the place where other offerings have been left, as there are scattered icy frozen remains of various beasts and things that look like they have been ice cooked by the frost breath and then eaten partially. So they believe that they've found the correct location, and then they go ahead and summon up the spider, gather a bunch of rope together, and tie the mithril ingot onto a shield that is then tied to the rope, and they place it near the spider. And then once everything's in position, they use thaumaturgy to send out a Yeti call up into the top of the cavern. After a few moments, the dragon does indeed appear. The ancient white dragon comes down and breathes its frosty breath onto the spider, who, thanks to cold resistance, actually manages to survive the first blast. Rini has the spider flip its leg at the dragon in an attempt to flip it off without fingers. The dragon laughs briefly and then breathes another gout of frost breath on it, killing it and turning it into a spider ice cube. The dragon then snaps up this block, the frozen spider cube. The dragon takes off and brings with it the shield and rope that was attached to the mithril ingot, and Ford starts to get pulled along, as well as a couple of others, but Jester tugs on it at the same time that Bo tries to throw a shuriken to sever it, and they manage to snap the rope clean. However, the ingot goes on its way up with the dragon and the spider ice cube. Right before the dragon flew out of sight with the spider, Jester saw a faint blue glow that they were told would be the telltale sign that the mithril had been successfully turned into Iceflex. Rini turns into a giant owl and carries up Knot, Jester, and Bo to the top of this shaft. Jester and Knot dismount and go hide over in a nearby cutaway, and they see the dragon, and they successfully manage to stealth their way through without the dragon noticing them. They see that the dragon has begun to chow down on the spider. So they make the plan for Bo and Rini to fly off as Bo sends off some firecrackers to distract the dragon. Meanwhile, Jester and Knot will stay behind stealthily and go quickly grab the Iceflex and teleport away using her dimension door. So Rini takes off and the firecrackers go off, and the dragon immediately flips around and starts chasing after them. Rini, in owl form with Bo on her back, manages to make it all the way down to the ground, but not quite into the Leomund's hut that they had summoned up in order to have a safe place to retreat to, because enemies cannot get through it at all. It's completely impenetrable, and spells can't be cast through it either. However, the dragon catches up to them before they manage to get into the hut and breathes frost breath on Bo and Rini. Rini drops out of the owl form because it gets killed from the damage done, and she takes further damage to herself, and Bo also takes quite a lot of frost damage. However, they both remain standing. As the next turn comes around, Bo manages to dash into safety, and Rini turns into a frost spider with the frost resistance, takes one more breath of frost before she manages to make it safely into the Leomund's tiny hut. Meanwhile, Jester and Knot gather up the piece of mithril, and Knot also gathers a few other items. One was a shining stone that turned different colors, and another was a chainmail shirt. Knot grabs up those two things while Jester is grabbing off the piece of Iceflex, and then they use Dimension Door to go straight to directly outside the tiny hut, the magical protective barrier, and they dash inside of it as the dragon notices their appearance. Now, with all of the Mighty Nein safely inside of the tiny hut, Caleb immediately begins to cast a teleport spell, which takes about a minute. During this time, the dragon is going completely berserk and trying to claw and gash its way through and breathe frost on the thing, and is like freezing over a circle outside of it because none of its abilities and none of it can get through the hut. By the time the teleportation spell is about done, the dragon starts taking in big whiffs of air and then says, "I have your scent now," as they teleport out and make it back to safety. And that's where this week's episode ends. So next week we'll pick up with them having their Iceflex in hand and hopefully getting the Star Razor forged and maybe getting Ford some of his groove back. But yeah, that was pretty much it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.